Welcome back to the second part of the Android one-to-one chatting app using Firebase. In the previous tutorial, that is the first part, we've talked in details about the resources, we talk about the layout, the values, when we mention about the colors used, the different shades of gray, blue, indigo, and so on. The strings XML that houses all string values used in the application, and even the style, which takes cognizance of the theme that's actually going to display the different layout, the chat room, the login, and even the register. From there, we'll be moving to the core logic of this application. We'll be talking about the events, the models, the UI, that's the activities used, the utilities, and some other functionality. I'll be starting with the UI, which is the activities. Where we'll talk about the activities, the fragments, the adapters. I might not be writing all codes, but I will be writing the major aspects that I need you to understand, and other aspects will be included in the course of the video. So from here, I'll be going to the UI, where I have the sub package, the child, which are activities, adapters, and fragments. And in the activities, we're going to have the chat, the login, the register, the splash, and the user list activity. I believe you should understand the activity. So I'll actually be writing the codes involved. So we'll first of all create the Java class, which is the splash activity, since we have a splash screen. I believe this should be the launcher UI of this application, and we should know how to include a splash screen in your Android app. I'll actually be showing you again on how to go about that quickly. Activity. So we have some statics, so we need to import this. Let's bring that in, and let's have some fields. Private, static, final, splash, let's go to 2000. We're gonna have another one. Runnable. That's fine. Let's have our own create method. We need to have protected, void, create, bundle, save instance, state. Super create. Pass that in. Now let's set our content view to the layout. No, none of that. Activity splash, and bring in the R. Very important. No, we don't need to create that one. We need to import the class R. That's fine. So activity splash. So we need to bring that in. Now let's instantiate the M handler. New handler. Likewise the runnable, so that brought out it override the run method, So we're actually going to check if user is already logged in or not using the if statement. If Firebase parts. So we'll get the instance of Firebase and get current user. If it's not equals to null, what we're going to do, we're going to call the use listing. We haven't created this activity. Details inside this activity. Just use the listing activity. I will start activity. Pass the splash activity to this class. Else, use the login activity. We haven't created that as well. Start intent. Splash activity. This. Now we need to finish up. And we need to close it right here. So that starts the splash screen. So we need the user listing, activity, and the login activity. So we'll be creating all these inside the activities sub package. So let's create the login. So this will actually extends a compact activity. We're going to have a private toolbar. So we call it the toolbar, M toolbar. Let's initialize it. Now let's have the method start intent. Public static method. We'll pass the context, which is like this particular class, called the intent. Create an object. Intent. We need to instantiate new intent. Pass the context. It should be in lowercase. The login activity. This. So passing an intent out there. Now we're going to call the context to start activity, passing the intent as a parameter. So this will be class instead of. So we're going to have another start intent, but this time we're going to have the flags included. So let's just copy that. Now instead of, we're going to add one more, that's another constructor there, but we're going to add one more parameter, and the parameter will be flags. Alright, so we're going to pass the intent and set flags. Set flags, and now we pass the flags, the parameter, and we'll start the activity for intent. That's fine. So let's rush and create the onCreate method. Let's override protected void create bundle, save instance state, have the super, create, save instance state, set content view, r dot layout. No, we import that. No problem. Let me import it. Dart activity login. Now let's bind views. So we're going to have this method, bind views, and a init. That's initialize method. We're going to have them declared after this. So let's declare it quickly. The bind views method, private, void, bind views. So now we call the m2bar equals to, let's cast the toolbar class, and let's find the view by ID. Should be familiar with this flow. ID toolbar. Close that right there. That's for the bind views. Now let me try to collapse all these so that I have space to work with. Even the imports. That's fine. So I'm going to have the init, which will say private void init and now I'm going to set support action bar to the toolbar and toolbar. And now let's set the login screen fragment. So we need to include a fragment into an activity. So that's how to just make that work. No, including a fragment into an activity. So I'll show you how to do this. Need a fragment transaction as an object. So let's get support fragment manager to begin transaction. Let's call the fragment transaction to replace the frame layout content login. You get it? As a fragment itself. Now let's do something here. Login. Call the login fragment. I haven't created that anyways, but we'll create that afterwards. New instance, because the fragment is the view. And we're going to still call the login fragment. Class get simple name. Close that right there. Call the fragment transaction. And we commit. So we're going to create the login fragment later on. We're going to have that set later on. So this is the login screen, and we have it set. So we'll be talking more in the login fragment and even in the register fragment and so on. So let's create the register activity. Same thing, extends compact. Have the private super and super. public static void start activity. Now I'm going to pass in the context as a parameter here. So fine. Now let's have the intent, and we have an object, new intent, that's in the context, register activity class, context, start activity as the intent. Now let's have our own create. Okay, set content view, layouts, activity register. So we still call on the bind views method, just like the way we did for register, for login rather. And init. That's fine. So let's take a queue, bind, and init. Back to register. Same thing goes in there. Bring out a fragment transaction. So let me just. Now that's fine. So we have to change this to register. Register. That's fine. So we have that set. So from here, we're going to look at the chat activity. Let's talk about the chat activity. We have a chat we're looking at. Chat activity. This extends compact. Private. Toolbar. And toolbar. We need a toolbar for the class. Now let's have a public. Started. Void. Starts activity. Just the way we have, but this will take a different dimension. Now we're going to have the context. String. Called receiver. We're going to have another string. Receiver UID, that's for the device. Let's say an instance of the device. another string, Firebase token. We need a token for each session. These are our parameters. Now intent equals to new intent for the context chart class. Now we have to put extras. Constants. So we need a constant. We get to talk about that. No, not this constants. We have a class called constants. That's rg underscore receiver don't need to import the class now because we haven't created, it's not created yet, so just still keep on the low, put extra, it's the same constants. Arg receiver, this time UID, call that receiver UID, and we're going to have for the token. Let's copy this as we have it replicated. Arg receiver. Now it's going to be Firebase token. Call that Firebase token. That's fine. And let's start the activity. As the intent. Get to create the constants. Never mind. So let's have the onCreate. So we have the super onCreate, save the instance state, set content view, layout, that activity chart, enter. Still call the bind views, and also the init views or the init. So we'll get to copy all that as well from the register. We have a kind of copy of this the chart that sits outside. Paste that right there. Let me try tripping distance closer. That's fine. So we have the bind view. Now we need to change this. Let's first of all go through it. The init toolbar, fine. Now that you need to set a, let's set the toolbar title as well. So we call m toolbar set title. Now we get intent. Get extras. get string, call the constants, arg, receiver. That's fine. So now we set definitely register string fragments. We'll replace with the layout content chart. We have that set. Now we're going to have chart fragments, not the register fragment now. Chart fragments. I guess a new instance. Right inside the instance, we're going to get intent, get extras, now we're going to get string, and we also, what else are we getting? Now inside here we're going to pass the constants, just like the way we did, and call the arg receiver. That's fine. So inside here we have to get all these up there. Copy that. I'll change those values now. Get intent, get extras, get string, constant, arg receiver. Now for the UID. You got it? UID. That's fine. Give a comma. Is that right there as well? This time you get in Firebase. Token. That's fine. You have the sets. Now here you need to change that to chart. Class get simple fragment transaction. That's cool. So we just need the constants and the chart fragment. So I'll actually be bringing in the fragments values so that we're going to have that set up. I'll actually be bringing that in, and from there we'll be talking about all the aspects of the code. So from here we've been able to create the fragments being used. What about we have the chart fragment, the login, register and uses, and even the adapters. So we also made mention of the utilities, but let me quickly create the models. What about we're going to have the chart and the users. So let's create that together. New Java class. Let's start with the chart. We need the models, and we're going to integrate a sort of a class. Okay, let's move on with this. A push notification later on in the project. Public string header should be sender. So let's have a copy of this. So this should be receiver. And this should be sender UID. Let's call that sender UID. And this should be receiver UID. And you have another one, message. You have another one, time stamp. This timestamp is a long data type. set. And now let's have the constructor public chat. That's set. It's an empty constructor anyways. And let's have the major one. Now the public chat. So now this one is going to have the parameters. First string, sender, another string, receiver, another string, sender UID. Let's have another string, receiver UID, string message, long timestamp. So these sender equals sender, these receiver equals to receiver, these sender UID, sender UID, these receiver UID, receiver UID, these message equals message, these timestamp equals timestamp. That's fine. So you have the sets. That's for the chat models. So let's create the users. We have the user model. The user model is actually going to have the public string UID. That's fields needed, public string, email, public string, Firebase token, should be token. And now let's have the user constructor, user. That's there. We're going to have another one, public user. This time it takes the string of UID, string of email, string of Firebase token. Now these UID plus UID, these email equals to email, these Firebase token equals to Firebase token. Now let's have for the users. That's for the users. The same thing we did. Now we're going to get private string email ID, private string last message create int notif count. So we have a public string get email ID, return email ID. We have another public void set email ID. This email ID equals to value of email ID passed in. So we have public is going to get last message, return last message. We're going to have the set, corresponding set. Set last message, this last message, first to last message. We're going to have set notification, and just create that notificount. This notificount equals to notificount. So we're going to have the last get. It's actually going to be get notificount get notificount return notificount. So this should be what we are setting, should pass int notificount. You get it. So that goes to this notificount. That's fine. So this should be get notificount, and that's get notificount return notificount. So this will be an int. So it's an integer data type. So that's for the users. That's fine. Now we have the model set. We're going to actually get to look at the activities. We still need a constant, which is let's see where the constant. So we need to import this, since we now have the constants from the Firebase utils, which was created. We have the chat fragment also created. We have that imported. Same thing goes for the login fragment. Let's get that imported. Let's look at the register activity. If we have anything to import, we need to import the register. Let's look at the splash. We need a user listing to start up. We'll get to create this activity here, no problem. So we'll have the chat activity also. What we not including, I think we have all that set. Let me look at the onCreate. That's fine. So, but let us quickly look at the user listing. We need an activity called user listings. User listing activity. So at this we actually list all what we need. We'll be getting that imported in there. So we're going to have our events. Let's get to look at the events that might occur. We have the push notification event. Let's get to include that right in this class. So I'll be sending the source code anyways, so that you might get acclimatized with it more, because it's quite lengthy, so I have to break it down, and so that the video won't be unduly long. Notification. But once you lay your hands on the source code, you should be able to get yourself good with it. So the same thing goes with the notification event. We're going to actually create some fields. Private string title, private string message, and private string username, private string UID, private string FCM token. That's fine. We have all dependencies included right there in the core, whereby we have the chat login, logout, registration, users or package, and we have the chat contract, the chat interactor, and the chat presenter. I'd like you to look at all those classes yourself. We have the login, whereby we have the login contract, interactor, and also presenter. The same thing goes for the registration users. The events, we have a push notification. So these actually, when we're trying to set the title, message, username, UID, and FCM token. Now we have the push notification, whereby all those parameters were taken as cognizance of, and they were initialized with this particular keyword. So we have the get and set title, just like the encapsulation we used to know. So that's for the event. And we have the FCM, which is the notification builder, the Firebase instance ID service, and the Firebase messaging service. These are all out of the box from Firebase. I would like you to look at that yourself. We created the models together, whereby we have the charts, the user and the users. We did that together. And in our UI, whereby we have the activities, the adapters, and fragments. In the activities, that's when we have the chart, login, register, splash, user listing. We all created that together. But I would like you to look at the adapters yourself, whereby we do recycler view. We've done a lot in recycler view in the past, whereby we set the view type and so on. And even we have the user listing adapter and the listed recycler view. So the fragment houses the content of each activities. In all activities we also have the fragments, whereby we have the chat fragment, we have the login fragment, the register fragment, and the users fragments that supports each activities discussed. In the utilities, this is where we declare the constants, the ARG users, the ARG receiver, the UID, the chat rooms. These are the string values for each of them. We have the item click support listeners that actually handles different item click support of the recycler item. And we have some network connection utilities, and we have the shared preference as well. That actually keeps some data used, like the save string. The saved integer was not called in the class in the course of the application. We have the get string, and we have which other one? Others were not called, but the major aspect is the get string and also the saved string. This over here, we make use of them. Now the Firebase chat main app will try to integrate that. Now this extends an application, so this is going to be the last aspect that we'll look at, application, and we need to import this before we go to our manifest. And we have a private static boolean, which is let's call it s is chat activity open, equals to false. Let's have public static boolean is chat activity open. Sorry for that. Is chat activity open. Now the method return is chat open. Again to our public static void set chat activity open. Now we have boolean and we pass this chat. Sorry, this should be this boolean should be is chat. Sorry for this model up. Is chat activity open. It should be, sorry for this. This should be is. Now we have the Firebase chat main app that is calling on as this chat activity open, which will be equals to this chat activity open, just like this. So outside this method, we're going to have our onCreate and to override public void onCreate. Now it's not going to take any parameter. It's just going to call the super onCreate. Cool. We have that set appropriately, and let's take a step backwards. Our main app application is chat activity open. Is chat activity open equals to activity open. Fine. We have set chat activity open. It takes on the boolean is chat activity open, and we call on Firebase chat main app as chat activity open, which equals to the chat activity open. That's fine. That's what we are set to do. So we have one, that's not going to affect. So we're going to move straight to. So that's fine. From here, we'll be moving straight to the Java, the manifest. Whereby we're going to lock in what we actually used. We used a lot of activities here, fragments, and so on. So we need that to be registered in the manifest. First of all, we have the application. Fine. Up to this extent. Now we need to add the activity that we want, since we've taken away the main activity. So we're going to add us. This one is going to call the splash screen. Definitely the splash screen is going to be the launcher. Leroy Studios, the splash screen over there will be the launcher, and we're going to have Android label. Add string, app name, let's have theme, add style. So what theme are you using? App theme, no action bar splash. That's for the launcher. Let's close that right there. Cool. Yeah, we're going to have the intent filter. Inside there, we're going to have Android action, sorry. The Android name, call that Android intent. action, main. We have category, Android name, Android, intent, category, launcher. Now let's register the activities used. The first activity, it's going to become the Data Studios. Firebase chat UI activities, the login. Let's log in the login. Android label, app string, app name, Android theme, app style, no action bar. That's fine with that. Let's have another activity. So I'll just have to copy this. So this should be for register. This should be for user listings. This should be for the chat. And we now need the service, Android name. Let's call the service cam.Data Studios. Firebase FCM is going to be the ID service over there. Inside there, we're going to have an intent filter, and we're going to have action, Android name, com.Google, Firebase, instance, ID, event. Got that? Fine. So we have registered all major activities used. The login, register, user listing, chat. From the login you get to the fragment, the register gets to the fragment, and the instance ID service. So from here we've done a lot. I know there will be a lot of questions that might be bothering you. Just leave that at the comment section. I'll be there to help you out with any problem whatsoever. So I'll be testing this application in an emulator, and I said congratulations for getting this far. And I'll also be uploading the source code to my GitHub account so that I can pick it up from there, use it for training purpose and for your learning. There's the login page, and you have access to create a new user. So let's register a new user. Whatever we'll call it, let's call it sample. We have example, we have demo, sample at gmail.com. Let's give it sample. So let's register. So it's actually going to add this to the database. Sample at gmail.com. Alright, registration successful. Now it's going to populate. Now we have example at Gmail, so I'll just easily log out. Just let me log out, and so that I'll be able to log in again. So let me log in as sample at gmail.com. Sample. So login.
fine. I have example at Gmail, I have demo at Gmail, I have demo at demo. You can see these are the users that I have right inside the Firebase database for this particular application. So I can easily chat with example. Let's chat with this user. Let's say hello, hello brother. Let's send this. Message sent. Fine. Hello brother. And let's go back. Now I'm going to log in with the example. So let me log out and let me log in an example at Gmail. Let me log out. So I run example at gmail.com. So with password example login. Login successful, and we get to look at the sample that actually sent a message to me. Can you see that? Hello brother. Can you see I can be able to visualize it, and at the same time I may decide to reply. I'm doing good. What about you? So I'm replying, send. There's always a notification as well. Can you see this is just a chatting system about the first user. There's a one-to-one chatting system whereby you get to chat with a particular user of the database, you know. So that's just the building block to different chatting system, to WhatsApp, to some private chats, even public, you know. This is just a building block to actually have you started with a more robust chatting system. So thank you very much for hanging out with me throughout this tutorial, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Have a lovely time. Bye bye.